Welcome to an NFL Week 17 edition of the RotoWire Sports Gambling Podcast, presented, of course, John McKechnie, by the good folks at BetMGM. Make sure if you're betting this weekend on the NFL, you're doing it over at BetMGM, BetMGM.com, the BetMGM app. Wait, I think my mic is messed up. Do I sound low?
You sound, it's coming in all right.
Okay, well, I'm gonna restart that for the audio crowd because my levels are very, very low right now.
Okay, all right, that does sound better.
Yep. Okay, good. Welcome to the RotoWire Sports Gambling Podcast, a Week 17 edition. We are sponsored, as always, John McKechnie, by the good folks over at BetMGM. If you're betting on the NFL this weekend, do that over at BetMGM.com on the BetMGM app. And please, for the love of God, make sure you use our promo code BETROTO. That's BETROTO. Very important. Again, that promo code is BETROTO. That first bet, risk-free up to $1,000. John, we did not skip a beat last week. We did our duty. We recorded this pod in advance of Week 16. You were on the road and in some foreign location, but you are back finally in Atlanta. You've been kind of gallivanting around the general southeastern seaboard of the United States. But I know you've had a long travel day, but glad to be back, I would assume.
Yeah, no, it feels good. As everyone saw, weather was nuts everywhere last weekend. I am but a humble sports writer, and therefore I rent an apartment. And I was very worried that we'd have some pipe freezage going on. Yeah. But luckily, Jay, the maintenance guy, frequent guest of the pod,
friend of the pod,
helped out, made sure the faucets were running, the heat was on, all that good stuff. So all good here. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about 6 a.m. wake up today, get on the airplane and get on the grind. So, I can feel everyone's sympathy even before they even listen to this pod, just knowing the grind that I've been on, going all the way to Florida, back to DC, up to Gettysburg, and then back on down here. It's been a whirlwind.
Up to Gettysburg. Love to see that. Just kind of get that football battle mindset.
Gettysburg, if not for Gettysburg, I wouldn't have these bad boys.
Oh no. For the audio listeners of this podcast, I don't even know how to describe this. Kind of a like a riffraff situation.
Yeah. Neon icon, the Peach Panther, the Vanilla Gorilla,
the Codeine Cowboy. I think at one point he was dubbed. Yeah. Anyway, BetMGM does not encourage the consumption of riffraff's music. We should get that out there. John, let's dive into Week 17. As always, we don't usually cover the Thursday night game. By the time you're hearing this pod, it might be during the Thursday night game, for all we know. I wish we could cover it though, because we're gonna have chaos in this Dallas-Tennessee game. It won't be Ryan Tannehill. It won't be Malik Willis. It'll be ex-Jag Josh Dobbs under center for the Titans, who are just basically tossing this game out. They don't really care. We know what's on the line for them, of course, in Week 18. Any quick comments on this game for posterity before we move on to the main slate?
Well, I'm going to set a personal line. We're still working with BetMGM to see as to whether we can get this officially posted on the board. But mentions of Josh Dobbs studying aerospace engineering at the University of Tennessee. That's really what I'm going to be looking for from this game, is just how often they mention that Josh Dobbs also a smart fella.
Yeah, people forget that. It was mentioned quite a bit during his college career. It's been mentioned anytime he enters a game in the NFL. He was, in fact, an aerospace engineering major. Very smart guy. I do wonder, though, and we'll be able to talk about this next week, like if Josh Dobbs looks okay, is the idea that they're resting Malik Willis, or are they auditioning Josh Dobbs for a potential appearance in Week 18?
That is, I don't think anyone expected Malik Willis to light it up necessarily, but they also spent a draft pick on him. And, with Tannehill potentially maybe coming towards the end of the line there in Tennessee, like you would have figured that, you want to see what you can get out of this, fairly high investment rather than a guy like Josh Dobbs. So, I mean, I would seriously question some things about the way things are going in Tennessee. I already do, but if they really think that a kicking of the tires on one Josh Dobbs is like the primary objective here at this stage, something's rotten there.
Yeah, Malik Willis, not an aerospace engineering major, as far as I'm aware. So maybe
Liberty doesn't believe in space, so they don't have that program.
All right, let's look at week 17. We have a more traditional slate this week, of course, without the holiday. We got the one Thursday game. We're back to a whole gaggle of Sunday games, John. And then, of course, the Monday nighter, Bills-Bengals, an absolute banger, potential game of the year. So we will absolutely talk through that one. But as usual, let's make our first pass here. Which lines stand out to you as a bit too high over at BetMGM?
So among the lines that are a little bit too high, in my opinion, I think we're both kind of on the same page here as it comes to the Giants. They're just, I think they're a veritable lock to win that game. But again, when the conversation definitely changes when you're asking them to cover by a touchdown or to win by a touchdown against anyone, even the lowly Indianapolis Colts. I feel like the Chargers. I know I keep hating on the Chargers on this pod. They are a frustrating team to bet with. If you've backed them, you've actually come out ahead this year. But I just still feel like Monday night, Indianapolis's terribleness powers kind of overpowered the Chargers' inability generally to play a normal NFL football game. I think that we see that snap back to being on brand this week. I think they're in for a weird one at home against their roommates, the Los Angeles Rams. The Bills, we'll certainly unpack this one a little bit later, but I feel like I'm dubious on them being a road favorite the way that Cincinnati is playing right now. And I felt like the Lions, that I like their ability to score points in this one against the Bears, and the Bears haven't been like a cover machine necessarily, but
no, they have not.
The Bears, or I'm sorry, the Lions defense against this type of rushing attack, it does concern me a little bit. Fields really ran all over them in that first matchup in week 10. So again, Lions at home, I understand it, but 6 is a little bit much for me at this stage as of this recording.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to do a real reckoning on Detroit. Like last week was that shocking to me, to lose in that fashion, to get dominated the way that they did by the Carolina Panthers. I think that is cause for a little bit of alarm. I mean, they were talking in the first half on the Panthers broadcast of like, will the Panthers set the NFL rushing record in this game? It was happening like early second quarter. And of course they didn't. They set a franchise record. But still, I mean, there was just no resistance, especially after Detroit had that fumble near the goal line. And that really felt like it flipped the entire game. I mean, they were about to go up by a score, and all of a sudden they're down 2 scores like 10 minutes in real time later. I'm with you, though. I think that number is a little too high. Giants is the one that I had written down. Like, to me, and I'll say this, if you go over to rotowire.com, we have that nifty tool where you could compare sports books, and the 3 other unnamed sports books other than BetMGM all have this at 5.5. So I would advise you to lock that in now if you can. If you want to go on the other side against the New York Giants in this game. I think they win. There's a lot on the line for New York. There is nothing on the line here for Indianapolis. In fact, it's probably better for the Colts if they lose this game as far as draft positioning is concerned. And I think they're one of the few franchises that, like, the front office will actually meddle to the point that they will make sure they don't win this game. But I do kind of like them to keep it close. I think some people are maybe backing off the Colts just because Nick Foles was so bad last week. I don't think he's going to be that bad again. And the bottom line here with the Giants, though, John, is they just don't, one, they don't blow teams out, and 2, they don't really score points. So, the total in this game is sitting pretty low. You'll find it at like 38.5, 39. So we're not expecting a ton of points. The Giants have one game all year in which they've scored more than 24, and that was a 27-point eruption against the Packers.
Yeah, that who could forget? That's the thing. With a spread this large in a total that low, and an offense as kind of slow, methodical, more interested in kicking a field goal than a touchdown, it feels like a lot of the time it's tough to trust them in that spot. Obviously, Dable's going to be able to like coach circles around Jeff Saturday, like you said. There's the element of Indianapolis maybe doing a live flash mob tank job.
Yes.
Which makes sense for them. Looking forward.
If Deion Jackson like rips off a long run, Jim Irsay is going to jump out of the box and tackle him at the 5-yard line.
Yeah, he's already in the Meadowlands, like rigging the field with like the Buffalo Wild Wings button to try to
like
sabotage
landmines buried under the field.
Get the sprinklers on right now. It's a turf field. They don't have an irrigation system, Jim. I don't care.
Yeah, so I mean, I just see this as like a classic 21-17 win. And like, as far as 4-point wins go, like it could be a 3-point game, could be a 5-point game, whatever. I feel like it's going to be a comfortable win for the Giants, but much like all of their wins this season, you look back and you're just like, wow, that was closer than it felt, So I just think we get another one of those games for the Giants. The other game that we haven't mentioned, we might have a record for most rat lines this week, John. Do the Jets, the New York Jets, and yes, they have Mike White back, do they deserve to be 1.5-point favorites at Seattle?
I think they do.
Okay.
And I think it's a little bit less to do with the Jets and more with the regression monster coming for Seattle. Like I definitely like the Chiefs with the big number last week against Seattle. And I just feel like that there's been something off with the Seattle team for the last month. Mario kind of set me straight on the pod earlier where I was dogging them for their performance over the last month. And it's like, well, do you really expect them to beat the 49ers and the Chiefs? It's like, okay, fair. I don't, but they had been playing so much better the first 2 months of the season.
Right.
And it feels like they're kind of falling apart here as we approach the finish line. The Jets still have a little bit of something to play for. I think the guys seem to play really hard for Mike White. We saw Chris Streveler play in an NFL game last week because of Zach Wilson. So, good Lord. I feel like Mike White is going to get the guys going. And yes, Seattle's a tough place to play. It's late in the season, everything like that. Long trip for the Jets and everything. But I still like them to cover this one, even if it definitely seems odd to see them as a road favorite in this spot.
Yeah, to me, it just comes down to, they've lost 5 out of 6 at this point. It doesn't feel like they've lost 5 out of 6. There's just kind of been some strange circumstances in there, even in games where they played well. They've kind of run into some tough situations against Minnesota and Buffalo. Last week was obviously kind of a shocking result, but I think you could pretty much pin that on Zach Wilson. And I think the other thing that's baked into the line here is we have some pretty significant injury concerns for Seattle. That entire offense is basically on the injury report. If you go over to RotoWire, Kenneth Walker, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, Tyler Lockett, Marquise Goodwin, Noah Fant, all those guys still on the injury report as of Thursday. I have no idea at this juncture how many will play. The offensive line, feels like it regresses every week. The defense has been on a steady decline as well. So I do like the Jets to win this game. And, I wrote in Beating the Book, it's like, I don't feel like the Jets should be favored, and yet I'm very comfortable picking them. So yeah, it's kind of a weird line, I guess, like for a team that's lost 5 of 6 to be giving 5.5 on the road, going cross country this late in the year, all those factors. What about the other side? Lines that are a little too low as of Thursday.
Let's see here. I felt like this one was a little bit tougher to identify than the ones that were a little bit too big. I felt like the Eagles one, really stuck out. They're checking in as 6.5-point favorites right now. I'm comfortable with them by 7.5 number, even up to 8. So I'm strong on the Eagles. I was impressed with how they were able to perform last week in Dallas, even without Jalen Hurts. I feel like the Saints, they got away with it last week because the Browns somehow found a way to fail even harder. Losing to a dome team when you have the conditions on your side like that is just it's borderline fireable offense for one Kevin Stefanski. Pretty brutal. So for the Saints, I just don't think that they're going to carry that into this week. I think that there's still too much without an identity on offense. Like if they switch things up and they start going heavy to Taysom Hill, like the Eagles are going to know how to respond to that. That defense is deep, super talented. That it's like you can pull the wool over their eyes maybe once with Taysom Hill, but I don't think that you're going to win with, to borrow a phrase of yours, the Taysom Hill raid offense. I don't think that's going to keep the Saints in this one. And, the Saints defense is good, but I think the Eagles offense is multiple enough, with the run game, with the passing game, even with Minshew, to where I think the Eagles really just kind of, get some of that frustration from last week out on the lowly Saints.
I feel the same way. The Saints technically somehow still alive in the NFC South, so you don't necessarily expect them to roll over. I just, when you talk about a wounded animal game for the Saints, a kitchen sink game, whatever cliche you want to throw out there, I just don't know what their options are. And it's like I guess, like you said, Taysom Hill is kind of the one wild card that they could throw out, but I just don't think they have the horses to stay with Philly. And with the Eagles losing last week, they need to get one more win here to lock up the division and lock up the 1 seed. And I don't think they want to go into that week 18 game against the Giants just needing to win, like absolutely needing to win. I mean, obviously they'll be favored, and if Jalen Hurts is back, you like their chances, but any team can lose one game. Like this team almost lost to the Colts for Christ's sake. So I just don't think they just want to avoid that entirely. So I don't expect this to be a game where, the Eagles are holding anything back, or, they're pulling starters early. Like I think they just want to take care of business, get the 1 seed, and then, do that resting and all that business in week 18.
Right. The pressure will be on them because the Cowboys effectively we don't know the result of the game yet, but they effectively get a bye.
It might be 100-0.
Yeah. So like if they want it to be, it could get to that level. So the Eagles need to, they can't take this lightly either. So that even further kind of fuels the idea of them winning this one. It wouldn't shock me if we see this line move up closer to go time.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and it's been pretty steady throughout the week. It was at 5.5, up to 6.5. It's funny that the look ahead line back in August was Eagles 3, and it's now 3.5 points higher with a backup quarterback.
Wow. I mean, that tells you that tells you everything you need to know kind of about these two teams and how their seasons have gone. The Saints is there a more like faceless franchise right now in the league? Like what do they do exactly?
Yeah, it's kind of the Tim Robinson figure out what you do meme. I have no idea. I think, the direction was supposed to be Jameis, right? That's what we forget is like, the plan was not to have Andy Dalton quarterback this team. The Jameis situation just went completely off the rails. We haven't heard a peep from him in like 14 weeks. I don't know. I don't know what their plan is, but I'm with you. I had the Eagles on my list as well of lines that are a little too low. If that stays at 6.5, that's going to be in potential lock territory. We'll cross that bridge when we get there at the end of the pod, but it's in consideration. I'll say that. I have 2 more. One of them is questionable. One of them I feel pretty strongly is a little low, and we got to go to the Jags, Jonathan. I know there's some complications here. There's the prevailing belief is that everything comes down to week 18 for the Jaguars. And in many ways, that's correct. Obviously, we know that the winner of that game takes the AFC South, gets that automatic spot in the playoffs. Not debating that whatsoever. However, the Jaguars are still very much alive. I shouldn't say very much alive. Technically alive to get a wild card spot. So I don't see this as a pullback game whatsoever for the Jags. They lost to the Titans earlier this season. I think there's a little bit of a vengeance factor. And we also have to take into account that the Houston Texans should have zero interest in winning this game when it comes to draft positioning.
Yes, that is a key factor when you get to this time of the year. Who's playing to win, who's not. Obviously, the Jaguars very much in a spot where they need to keep things rolling. And I think that the Jaguars, they haven't, kind of established themselves enough to where they can really, do the proverbial take the week off. Like they need to keep the pedal down and get this win, not mess around in Houston. So I could definitely see the case for the Jags being closer to like 5.5, something like that. But I took the Texans in my initial run through, but the more I think about it, the less inclined I am to back Houston.
And so the way I look at it is I could see the Jags pulling back if they're up. If it's 17-3 going into the fourth, I think you pull ETN, you pull Lawrence, and at that point you're playing for week 18. They're going to be scoreboard watching as well. But to get that wild card, they need the Dolphins to lose to the Patriots and lose again in week 18 to the Jets. Very possible. They need the Jets to lose in Seattle this week. Maybe not likely, but possible. They need the Bills to beat the Pats in week 18. I would say that's likely. And then they need the Steelers to lose this week to Baltimore. And then they need to lose in week 18 against the Browns. Who knows about that game? The Steelers are unpredictable, but it's not completely out of the question that all those events could transpire. So I don't think the Jags are putting all their eggs in winning the division.
Yeah, that's a good point. You gotta explore all avenues. It's rare to have a potential division winner that if they don't get that they're completely out of the wild card race too. But that's just kind of the state of things right now. But I think the Jaguars absolutely need to just kind of finish out strong, go into the playoffs ripping hot, and I think they can. And Trevor Lawrence is a scary, scary individual right now.
Yes, and that's the final piece of it is, like you said, the Jaguars are not a team that's been to the playoffs 5 straight years and it's just get us there and we'll be fine. Like, I think they want to keep this momentum going. I think you could see it in that Jets game. Like, this is a team that is having fun winning games. I don't think they thought they would be in this position. I think they want to keep this rolling. They want to win. They want to go into that Tennessee game with as much momentum as possible. Look ahead on that game, by the way, is Jags 6.5 for Week 18.
Really? Oh,
I think that's fair. At home, we have no idea who's quarterback for the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans are falling apart. I saw that report after a recent Titans loss where the locker room was like really kind of shook at learning the news that the Jaguars had also won. And they just kind of felt like everything was slipping through their fingers. It's like, geez,
Right.
this does not sound good that's getting out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think the Titans, I mean, I'm not going to say they just like, put it on cruise control, but I think they thought they had it sewn up, and in all likelihood, everybody thought they did, right? I mean, if you're talking like back in Week 10, I don't know what their odds were to win the division. They were probably minus 2,000, something like that. I mean, by all accounts, they were cruising their way to this division, and all of a sudden the Jags are back in it. So I totally buy that. The other game that I think might be a little too low, and this is the questionable one for me because it is a high number. 49ers sitting at 9.5. They're at the Las Vegas Raiders. We know what's going on. If you're listening to this pod, you're familiar with what's going on in Vegas. I don't know what the Raiders are trying to accomplish here, other than Derek Carr not getting injured and triggering the guaranteed money in that contract. But it's in their best interest at this point to lose games. I think you're in draft pick mode. Obviously, that's more of a front office thing than a players on the field thing. But the 49ers, much like the Eagles, still have a lot to play for. Like if you're the 49ers, you're hoping that Green Bay beats the Vikings and you can move up to the 2 spot. So I think the 49ers are not quite pack it in for the playoffs mode.
No, I don't think so either. I think they're going to keep things going. They need to, if it is going to be Purdy for the rest of the season, like they need to get him as many, like just full on reps as possible. So they need to like keep things going as far as that goes. The defense is, I think that is why I'm comfortable with taking the Niners at such a high number, because Jarrett Stidham is so bad. Like he's terrible. We lived in a world like 2 years ago where Patriots people were trying to talk themselves into saying that Jarrett Stidham was going to be something.
Yeah.
No, not even a little bit. So he's a non-serious quarterback. I don't know if he's the worst quarterback playing this weekend, but I mean, it's a short list of other guys that are even in contention relative to Stidham. So I could see at least one defensive touchdown for the Niners to kind of help boost the cause as far as covering this number is concerned. And I feel like the Raiders defense isn't going to have a ton of answers for what San Francisco does on offense. So all of this lines up pretty nicely to me. And I don't think that this is a galvanizing moment for the Raiders now that Derek Carr is benched. If anything, I think we're closer to mutiny watch.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think the Raiders are the number one team for me that is on just pack it in mode watch. I mean, if you saw the Josh Jacobs interview after the last game, that looked like a guy who was just completely dejected. But basically was talking as if he wasn't going to be playing for the Raiders next season. I think there's kind of been some internal mutiny already. If you kind of read some of the stories around this team. So yeah, if there's one spot where I see a team just kind of laying down and throwing in the towel, this is it. And if you don't want to do that against the 49ers, because they will absolutely take advantage of it. The 49ers, by the way, John, 32 straight quarters without allowing more than 9 points. They've allowed 7 or fewer. So basically one score or fewer in 31 of those 32 quarters. In their 15 games this season, they've had more yardage than their opponent 14 times. And they've had more yards per play in 13 out of 15 games. I mean, that's certified wagon status.
Yeah, they are nothing to mess with. The real question all along is, how's the quarterback play going to, stay afloat? It started out with Trey Lance. They lose that game in Chicago. They got to go to Jimmy G. Obviously, a great backup to have, with all the starting experience that he has. He goes out and you're seemingly without a paddle. And then Brock Purdy just is this godsend. Like Purdy's a badass, like just full stop. And, they've been able to kind of keep the wheels churning, even with him, Mr. Irrelevant, being back there. So, I mean, yeah, the Niners are about as scary of it. I think they might be my NFC team right now.
It is crazy to say, but they haven't missed a beat. They have not missed a beat. 4-2 in their last 5 games. They have 4 wins, 2 losses. They have 4 wins, 2 losses. And they have 4 wins, 2 losses in their last 5 games. So, I mean, yeah, the Niners are about as scary of it. I think they might be my NFC team right now.
It is crazy to say, but they have not missed a beat. They have not missed a beat.
with Brock Purdy. And, I'm still on the Eagles. I think for whatever reason, like all year, it feels like the Eagles just continue to be underrated. And as long as Jalen Hurts is back, I think they've earned the team to beat status. And look, if the Niners, if they had Trey Lance and he was playing well, or even Jimmy G, I'd feel a little bit better about it. I think they're the best. They're the team that I maybe trust the most. I think they have the best roster, but I'm not ready to put Brock Purdy, put my faith in Brock Purdy over the guy who was going to win MVP if he didn't end up missing time at the end of the year. So I'm still trying to keep the respect I have for the Philadelphia Eagles, but I think things are lining up well for San Francisco, especially if they are able to pass Minnesota and get that 2 seed. I mean, they'll play most likely the Giants in round 1. You feel great about that matchup. And then I guess most likely the Vikings in round 2. Getting that team at home, I think they just absolutely gashed the Vikings defense.
Yeah, that would set up great for them if they end up with the 2 seed. But I don't see them getting tripped up until the NFC Championship, no matter what the road looks like. So obviously they want the higher seed, easier first round matchup and everything. But I'm having a hard time seeing a potential loss until like that last weekend in January.
So if they beat the Raiders and beat the Cardinals, which they should these last 2 weeks, that would be 10 in a row going into the playoffs. Like, does that worry you at all? Like, should they mix in a loss here just for some variance?
Are they too hot?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Are they too hot?
Oh, as someone who's still very scarred from the Ravens, like 14-game winning streak or a 12-game winning streak or whatever it was in 2019, then they got bullied. Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for taking an L late in the season, regrouping, but maybe this Niners team just needs to keep it going, stay hot.
One note, by the way, as we talk about teams like the Raiders who are eliminated, and somehow there aren't that many teams that are totally out of it. Like if you mosey on over to 538, it's astounding how many teams that you thought were eliminated like 4 weeks ago still have hope. Like the Steelers, like the Patriots somehow control their own destiny. That doesn't feel right. But eliminated teams that are facing teams that need to win over the final 2 weeks of the season are covering at a 63% clip over the last 30 years. So we need to approach these with some caution, but I have no faith in the Raiders. I was pretty comfortable. I think we had the Niners at like 6.5 or 7.5 in staff picks. And yeah, if this stays under 10, I still feel really good about that.
Yeah. I'm sticking with it. I don't see it going too much higher. I think we've kind of seen the bulk of the market reaction at this point. So, I mean, it would take like Devontae Adams, like just saying I'm not playing in this game or something for it to move any further, I think.
All right. So last week, John, we had an unprecedented situation on this pod. We didn't lose or win our best bet. We doubled up on the Eagles +6. Miles Sanders just took out a shotgun and fired it directly at the football, and fumbling late in the game killed what should have been a sure Eagles cover. I think they maybe win the game without that fumble, but at the very least, they were likely going to cover that 6-point spread. Instead, they gift the Cowboys good field position. They kick the field goal, make it a 6-point game. We end up pushing. So how do we handle this with the read?
I think, but what would be just is to do what we did last week, just roll it over. So we're splitting her up again, I think.
I think you're right. I think it's the only thing we could do, and I will lead us off. Kick off week 17 of the NFL season with the king of sportsbooks. Sign up with BetMGM right now using bonus code BETROTO. That's BETROTO. And your first wager over at BetMGM is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions.
Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, Wyoming, or Ontario only. Must be 21 years or older to wager, 19 or older if you're in Ontario.
This is a new customer offer only. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards are issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. And of course, John, this excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly.
If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, D.C., Kansas, Louisiana, Nevada, Wyoming, or Virginia, 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER in Indiana, Maryland, New Jersey, or West Virginia, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. Call HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789 in Tennessee, or call 1-888-777-9696 in Mississippi.
In Ontario, if you have questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor for free of charge. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Ohio, and Utah, as well as other states where prohibited. Promotional offers not available in Nevada and New York. Okay. It feels all right to be doing that read and not be coming off of a loss. I mean, we'll take a push in that scenario. I think we took a little bit of a leap doubling up on Philly, but I feel like for the second week in a row, I believe I was on Philly the week before against Chicago. I think it was the right pick, John.
It was. I felt shorted. I felt cheaped out. I was very disappointed with how the end of that game shook out, especially with the Eagles, starting out so hot. I think they had a defensive touchdown. Things were just looking so good for it. Like that cover, very similar to, or not exactly analogous, but similar. I had Arkansas -2.5 yesterday. I was like, this is a freaking laugher. All right, sweet. And then I'm like checking my phone at dinner, and it's like, oh no, they're bleeding this one out. And then it gets to the goofy overtime rules where you can't score more than 2 points on a given play. And you know what? So you lose by the hook, and that is going to haunt me for days.
I was watching that game and just, Arkansas was up. Were they up 20 plus at one point? I thought that was sewn up. I turned away.
Yes. It was at least 24-7 or something going into half. Like Arkansas, tisk. Sam Pittman, letting your boys just kind of let Kansas move you around in the second half there and really push you to the brink after starting out hot, reading your own press. I love Sam Pittman usually, but he's in the outhouse for the foreseeable future.
Very, very uncool by Arkansas. Let's get back to the Week 17 slate, John. We'll rifle through these games that we did not hit in the first segment. And, man, we got to talk about it. Cardinals-Falcons, Battle of the Birds down in Atlanta. 42 is the total in this game. Honestly, that seems a little high. We are seeing the Falcons as 3-point home favorites. What's your take here? I don't have much to say about this one.
Is this would this be the Eric Metcalf Memorial Challenge?
I think we can call it that, yeah.
Okay, because he played for both of them, I think, right?
I will take your word for that. I will confirm in a matter of moments. Let's see, Eric Metcalf played 13 seasons. He did. He played 2 seasons for Atlanta, and he played the 1998 season as a member of the Arizona Cardinals.
There we go. Okay, I knew it. So,
well done.
Yes. But this game, if it was McSorley, then it's a slam dunk for Atlanta. McSorley was. The idea that Cliff just like he almost like thought he was Shanahan with the Purdy situation where he just kept running the same offense despite the drop off at quarterback or the expected drop off at quarterback. Whereas Purdy was and plays in a good system, has been great. McSorley like I tweeted, he had 21 pass attempts at halftime. Like he shouldn't have 21 pass attempts in a game. No. So that was just so bad. But they'll get Colt McCoy back, so that certainly helps things. Have not been impressed whatsoever with Desmond Ridder yet either. So again, like a game we just have to talk about for the sake of it. I'm on the Falcons here because I think that they at the very least have a strong run game right now, and I think that they can they'll be able to play their style. Their style doesn't work against everyone, but I think against the Cardinals it will. So I know Vance Joseph has done a good job as the defensive coordinator there to a certain extent out in Arizona, but I feel like in this particular spot, I'm gonna ride with the hometown Dirty Birds. And one other stray observation I had from last week: did you know that Arthur Smith is like really annoying on the sideline?
Yes.
Okay, I was kind of unfamiliar with that element of him. I usually have the Falcons game on in the background, but I'm not intently paying attention to it as much as whatever's on the main TV. That guy, he's a complainer. I don't love that.
He's a complainer. He looks like a complainer. Yeah, it hasn't been pretty. That's for sure. He's just like kind of always in like a pouty mood. Working the referees, things of that nature. I really don't have a strong lean here. I wish this was at 2.5. I'll tell you
Yep.
that. This seems like a 3-point game to me. Arizona though, they're down to 30th in total DVOA on the year. I mean, things are just kind of collapsing from the inside out for them on both sides of the ball. If with McCoy, I think I went with the Cardinals in staff picks. Obviously, you can tell that I don't feel that strongly about it, but this might be the stay away of the week for me.
Yeah, I would certainly, as the line stands, where we're over that magic number.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, this would be one to maybe just move along from when you're filling out your card this weekend.
Yep. Real quickly on Bears Lions, and we talked about that one. I like the Lions here. They're at home. They have something to play for. They want to set up that potential Week 18 showdown with the Packers, depending on what goes on at Lambeau Field this week. I'm approaching Justin Fields with some level of caution. The Bears are one of those teams that doesn't really want to win right now. They probably prefer to pick second. We saw Justin Fields only ran the ball 5 times last week against Buffalo. I do think it was in their best interest to protect him at this juncture in the season. However, he's just under 200 yards away from setting the single season quarterback rushing record. And look, I don't think coaches really care about that. I don't know how much the organization cares about it, but interesting nonetheless, because he ran wild on this Detroit team earlier this season.
Right. So that's a really good point about, them maybe putting the kitty gloves on him a little bit as it comes to his rushing attempts, because he, like you said, he ran all over Detroit the first time. But since coming back from that shoulder injury, a little bit dicier. It's a franchise. We're talking about a team that's not going anywhere, would like to be picking second. Although, oddly enough, straight draft observation, but like you're picking second, but they're probably not an offensive guy that's really so I could see them trading off of that, frankly.
Big time.
Just getting Jalen Carter, as good as Jalen Carter might be, I don't know if he fixes the Bears, although their defense is pretty abysmal too. But I think they want to get some weapons for Fields. But besides the point, I know I expressed some concern about the Lions covering this earlier, but if Fields isn't running, then I think the Bears get cooked.
Yeah, I think they absolutely trade back, especially because the pick that they gave up to get Chase Claypool would be the 33rd pick right now. So I think maybe you try to recoup some value after that deal. And like you said, I mean, there's going to be plenty of teams looking to move up for these quarterbacks in the 2023 draft. So I think if they do hold on to that second pick, they're actually in a perfect spot to end up moving back and collecting some more draft capital. One other thing to monitor in this game, Jamal Williams on pace to lead the NFL in rush TDs. He was 150-1 to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns coming into the year. The two guys close behind him are Derrick Henry and Jalen Hurts, and neither are expected to play this week. So if you happen to be holding a Jamal Williams 150-1 most rush TDs ticket, you're in pretty good shape here.
That's incredible. What a pull. Nice prep. Good on him. Good on Jamal Williams, and good on anyone who somehow found that wager, who had the patience to like click through enough pages to even find his name on that one.
All right, we talked about Jags Texans. Let's go to Broncos Chiefs. Not a ton on the line here. I will say Russell Wilson 6-0 ATS in his career when he's a dog of at least 7 points. He's 2-0 this season in those situations. With that said, I mean, the Broncos, for like the 12th time this season, reached a new rock bottom last week, allowing 51 points to the LA Rams. I think that defense just finally, like I don't know what you call it, like the structural integrity test failed. They've been propping up this team all year, and it felt like everything came crashing down last week. Obviously nothing to play for if you're Denver, and the Chiefs very closely going to be monitoring that Monday night game between Cincy and Buffalo. As of right now, the Chiefs are the number 2 seed. Should Cincinnati beat the Bills, however, the Kansas City Chiefs would move up to number 1, assuming they win. So I think this is a great spot for the Chiefs. They've come up short in some of these big number games already this season, but they're yet another team that you think maybe would take its foot off the gas late in the year, but they need to win this game. I mean, the 1 seed is very much in play.
Yeah, and when the 1 seed's in play, like that's so important now that there aren't 2 buys. Like that's just absolutely colossal. So they're going to want this one. I know that the Broncos kind of, pushed them to the brink a little bit in that first game. Similar to what we were talking about with the Raiders and like this not being like a galvanizing moment. Like I think that this is, Hackett being gone, I don't think leads to like some sort of big resurgence or everything clicks all of a sudden for this Broncos team. And the defense has been what's kept them alive, not even in the respectable territory, but like anything less than an abject disaster this year, even though it kind of has been even despite that. But then the defense, the one thing that's been okay about this team, gives up 51 points to Baker Mayfield. They could be in trouble. Like you said, the Chiefs, there's no better team to kind of like search for a big sample of these type of situations where they're double-digit favorites. And I know they haven't been great in them, but they took care of business this past week against Seattle. I think we see something very similar this time around. So I'm comfortable with backing the Chiefs with that many points.
Yeah, Chiefs 12.5 is the number over at BetMGM. I'm with you. I mean, it's high. It's higher than I'd like, but you understand the number, and it's pretty tough to mount a case for the Denver Broncos right now. Interim coach has like never been a head coach before. He's never been anything above a special teams coach. He was out of the league for 3 years before this season, so I don't really see much of a dead cat bounce here or a dead horse bounce, I guess, for the Denver Broncos. Let's go to Dolphins-Pats. This is another noon game on Sunday. Patriots 2.5-point favorites at home. Didn't see a ton of movement, with Tua to Bridgewater at quarterback. I think based on what we've seen from Tua for the last 5 weeks or so, it just doesn't really feel like going to Bridgewater might be all that big of a downgrade.
No, it doesn't. Tua, I thought, played well in Buffalo, but for every one of those, he has another game like last weekend with all the interceptions. So yeah, the move to Bridgewater, like, in your fantasy championships, like I'm definitely still locking Waddle and Tyreek into my lineups. Maybe the run game gets going a little bit more. Maybe they try to see what they can do there. The pass rush for New England is scary. I think that's one of like the scarier like in-game units that is in play in this particular matchup. But Bridgewater gets rid of it quickly. I don't think that Judon and Uche are going to necessarily like be setting up shop in that backfield. The offensive line a little bit closer to full strength, I believe, at this point than it was a few weeks back. So yeah, that it's like a flimsy support of the Dolphins while also getting to this point. The Patriots suck. They're not good. Mac Jones, the Grayson Allen comp getting thrown, that sticks to you, man. Like that. It takes a lot to get that stank off of you once someone says that you're basically the football Grayson Allen, and that's where he is right now. The offense, terrible play calling, terrible design, not a lot of talent. I think that Miami's defense will be able to keep New England in check there. Really, if the Patriots cover or win this game, it'll probably be on the strength of like something crazy happening with like Jones in the return game, that type of thing, because otherwise, straight up, their offense versus Miami's defense and Miami's offense versus their defense, I give the Dolphins the edge on both.
Yeah, I lean New England here, especially at 2.5, just because they're at home. I mean, that's really all I can come up with. You laid it out pretty well. I think there's kind of this element of unpredictability with Teddy, but at the same time, he's like the complete opposite of Taylor Heineke, right? I mean, he's not going to just like come in there and sling the ball around and, maybe he throws 4 picks or maybe he throws 4 touchdowns. Like, I think he's probably safer for this offense than the Tua that we've seen for the last month. So I'm kind of in line with the odds makers here. I don't see that as a major downgrade. Obviously, this is a huge game for both teams. There's not really any motivational factors on either side that would kind of swing you in one direction or the other. We should note Ramondre Stevenson still limited at Thursday's practice. I mean, if he's still nursing that ankle injury, that's a very, very big deal for the Patriots offense. They have a couple injuries at receiver, tight end as well. But I give a slight edge to New England. Obviously, I don't feel great about it. Bridgewater, by the way, 43-22 ATS in his career. That's 66%. However, he's 15-15 in his last 30. So that means at one point he was 28-7 ATS through his first 35 starts. He's also 20-4 ATS as a road dog, which is ridiculous.
Vegas in the last 30 has finally figured out one Teddy Bridgewater after he was a menace for years.
Yeah, they have one guy out there whose his whole job is to just set Teddy Bridgewater lines.
The first guy, you got like the Austin Powers "you're fired" chair.
All right, let's go to Tampa Bay, where we get Panthers, Buccaneers. Buccaneers 3-point favorites at home over at BetMGM. This number been on a steady decline. You know, it opened at 6. It was at 7 as recently as I think like last Saturday or Sunday. And then after the Buccaneers win and after the Carolina Panthers dominant win, it went from 4 and now it's been sitting at 3 for the last couple of days. I picked the Bucks in pick'em. I took the Bucks in staff picks. However, it was kind of a hedge pick for me because I really, really, really want the Panthers to win. And this is not an anti-Tampa Bay thing. I don't even hate Tom Brady. I'm just so sick of watching this team. I don't want them in the playoffs.
No, they are a slog to watch, and we've gotten a lot of them on national TV this year. I'm glad that this one they're amongst the normies in that window. Mm-hmm. I almost made the Panthers my best bet. I came.
Well, there's still time.
I feel nauseatingly so good about the Panthers this weekend that it almost feels like a lock that I'm wrong, because I think that this defense on the Bucks, not quite what it was last year or 2 years ago, and the offense is obviously pretty putrid. The Panthers have some pieces on their defense, and it all comes down to, they have a very thin margin for how they can win a game, but if they do get the ground game established, last weekend. Images of D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart danced through my head as they were running all over the Lions.
Steven Davis.
Yes, man. You name it. They've had some absolute dudes. Foster. But yeah, no, I think that the Panthers can go in there and do it. There's a little bit of something to them that they seem to have rallied around Wilkes, and the Buccaneers feel like, they're just kind of playing out the string. And, I don't think that they have that level where they can tap into something else and find a new gear at this point in the season. I think they are who they are. A couple of their wins have been just against miserable opponents. The Saints gave them that game on Monday night a couple weeks ago. The Cardinals, I turned it off after the Cardinals didn't score on their first drive in overtime. I was like, I've seen this movie a million times and I hate this movie.
I know it's like a movie that replays on USA Network every single Friday. I mean, the Buccaneers have played the exact same game now 3 times in the last 7 weeks. Like the Cardinals game, the Saints game, and the Rams game felt exactly the same to me throughout. And they keep finding ways to stay alive. Sarah Walsh, who's the NFL Network reporter, covers the Buccaneers. She was on the Rosillo pod this week. And she mentioned that, being in the locker room, even after their wins, she's like, it feels like losses. Like this team is not celebrating. Like it's like they kind of know they're in this weird spot right now. There's always going to be that belief. Like if they win this game, and that would clinch them the NFC South. Like if they're in the dance, you're never going to just count Tom Brady out, especially if they're playing Dallas. He's had Dallas's number. Dallas is always going to be shaky in those situations. Yep. But I just hope we don't even have to deal with that. Tampa Bay, by the way, 3-11-1 ATS on the year. And the total in this game sits at 40.5. Bucks are 13-2 to the under this season, which is preposterous for a Tom Brady-led offense. But I get it. I think this number is perfect. And the last time these teams played, they combined for 24 points. Tampa only scored 3.
That's right. Yeah, that was when that was our first real sign that there was something wrong with Tampa Bay. That, maybe they're not going to get this thing figured out, because early in the season, they win some games, but it's not pretty. But it's okay, they're still gonna hit their stride here. Godwin will get healthier. Mike Evans will get more involved. The run game will get better. None of those things, and nope. the defense just isn't as dominant as it has been in recent years. The offensive line obviously had some attrition before the season and during. It's just been kind of a mess. And yeah, they do just kind of seem like this joyless outfit. And, I think the record that they have, it speaks to the fact that there are just so many bottom rung teams, that there are teams that would qualify as a bottom rung type of team most seasons, but there's just a lot of them now. So you can't really lump them all together, but, definitely benefiting from the schedule. But, hey, I'm a Ravens fan. I know all about benefiting from a soft schedule this year.
Oh man. Speaking of bottom rung teams, Browns at Commanders. I mean, Commanders -2. They're at home. Totals 40 in this game. Just so ugly. We're going back to Carson Wentz for Washington. With the Browns, I don't even know what's left to say here. I think we know Deshaun Watson has been disastrous. I mean, they've scored 3 total offensive touchdowns since he's taken over. They've had their 2 worst offensive games of the year by far with Deshaun Watson under center. It's funny. I was talking to Jeff on the XM show earlier this week about, how we were talking about guys like Amari Cooper coming into the year. And the way we were framing it was like, yeah, if you draft Amari Cooper, you might have to suffer through some pretty rough weeks, but man, once Deshaun Watson gets in there, he could end up winning you your league. It's been the complete opposite.
And you feel like beholden to starting him because it's like, okay, this is going to be the week that Watson gets it figured out. And it's like, I'm not so sure about that. But the Browns and especially the Watson or the line of demarcation where Watson took over, you really did feel like the Browns were going to hit another level. That Texans game right off the jump was hideous. And pretty much every other game, even the Ravens win was not pretty, and they were going up against Tyler Huntley and everything. So even with all of that being said, Washington benching Taylor Heineke, bad vibes. And going to Carson Wentz, worse vibes. So you know what? Browns on the spread, Browns money line.
Look, I think if you're a Packers fan listening to this, that's exactly what you're hoping for. And it's interesting because we'll know the result of this game before Packers-Vikings kicks off in the afternoon window. Packers, if the Commanders win this game, the Packers need the Commanders to lose then in Week 18, or they need 2 Giants losses. So, all hope is not lost necessarily. But, going to be a lot of scoreboard watching, I think, in Green Bay heading into that game. I think you're right about the bad vibes. I can't really think of a precedent for this where a team that is very much in the playoff race, a team that controls its own destiny to make the playoffs, is willingly making a quarterback change without an injury at this juncture in the season. Like, when does that happen?
Exactly. And I don't think that Heineke was even the problem last week in San Francisco. I guess he was a little bit rough against the Giants the previous week.
Yeah.
But they only asked him to throw the ball like 18 times last week, and he was having success when he did drop back. I think he was over 9 yards per attempt. Jahan Dotson's starting to, straight comment, looking like a guy,
oh, yeah.
Maybe even a dude.
Big time guy, big time dude vibes from Jahan Dotson.
It's crazy how he's a first round, like a top 20 pick with like the least amount of buzz for a receiver that like we've seen in recent years. Like Jalen Reagor had more buzz going into his rookie season and he was picked later than Jahan Dotson did. But that guy, him and Scary Terry together, they can figure out the quarterback, or if Taylor Heineke can eventually figure it out, or maybe Sam Howell back there. But to go to Wentz right now, I know you're paying him a lot of money, but heavens to Betsy, you're just you're walking into a disaster of your own design.
Speaking of Dotson and just the general rookie of the year race, I tweeted this out earlier, but I was checking into the offensive and defensive rookie of the year odds. Sauce Gardner basically has defensive rookie of the year sewn up. He's like minus almost 1,300. Garrett Wilson, I wouldn't say it's sewn up. He's minus 200, but he is the relatively heavy favorite at this point. This would be only the 3rd time ever that the offensive and defensive rookie of the year are from the same team. And it would only be the 2nd time in the last 50 years. The other being Lattimore and Kamara in 2017, I think that was.
Yes. Wow.
Crazy, dang. Right? I would have thought that would have happened, I don't know, 5 to 7 times.
Yeah, that is unreal. I guess it's not often to be in the Jets position where they had 2 high first round picks, but at the same time, it's not like the other players that were, drafted in those windows have all been amazing. So they got it right on both of them. And that can be pretty tough to do even in the first round.
Right. And that's not even talking about the guy who was maybe the best rookie of them all in Breece Hall. I mean, what a draft. These are the type of classes that, kind of build foundations for really good teams for a decade. I mean, I think that Seattle class, Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, whoever else was in that, that set them up for a solid 7 to 8 year run. And I think if they get the quarterback position figured out, that the Jets could be looking at something similar. But yeah, I was surprised. I look back, I'm like, oh wait, did TJ Yeldon and Dante Fowler didn't do that for the Jets?
No.
All right. A few more games to get to. We talked Niners, Raiders. We talked Jets, Seahawks. Let's go over to Vikings, Packers. This number opened at 3. It's now up to 3.5 in favor of Green Bay. Pretty high total here, 48. Weather, by the way, just not really an issue for the most part. I mean, we have a complete reversal from last week, despite it being later in the calendar. It's unseasonably warm. I mean, it was 55 here in Milwaukee
Look at
today.
that.
So yeah, we don't really have any like wild weather situations to keep an eye on. And I think that's part of the reason what we're seeing a high total here. I'll tell you this. I know there's a lot of momentum with Green Bay. They've won 3 straight. I think everything's kind of falling their way in terms of the other events that they need to happen. I'm not sold. I'm really not. They were, I mean, almost doubled up in yards per play last week by the Dolphins. I think if Tua just doesn't completely implode with the concussion, what have you, I think they lose that game. I'm not convinced. I'm really not. And I think they could score on Minnesota. I think this could be like a 35-31 type of game. I think the Packers will make it a very close game, but I just do not trust them to shut down the best receiver in the NFL, who, by the way, is only 209 yards away from breaking Calvin Johnson's single season record. He needs 244 yards over the next 2 games to become the first ever 2,000 yard receiver. I would be shocked if Jefferson breaks Johnson's record in this game alone.
Oh.
I'll say it. That might be my best bet of the week. Justin Jefferson over 209 receiving yards.
I think someone put like a bet down on like which team Ovechkin would hit the 800th goal against and stuff. Yeah. So they should have that out there. Let's see if
they have it for LeBron. Like you could bet. I think it's off the board now, but before the season started, you could bet the exact game that he would break Kareem's scoring record.
So that kind of thing. I'd love to see that for Jefferson and the Calvin Johnson record. But yeah, I understand, and your point's well taken about this Packers team. We left them for dead. They've played better of late and everything, reeling off some wins when they needed to, getting off the deck when they needed to. If there was going to be any hope, any life left in this season, they needed to do what they've done in recent weeks. But is there another team that you could be less sold on that's good than the Vikings?
No, you're right. I know it's tough. It's really tough. The Vikings are putting us in a really bad spot here. I mean, they've been like arguably the worst defense in the league for the last 2 months. Like I totally get it. I mean, if you want to look at the Rodgers numbers, it's probably going to help your case. I mean, he's 27-4 straight up, 21-10 ATS at home in December or January in the regular season. The Packers just do not lose these games. I totally get that, but I don't think Christian Watson is going to play in this game. We'll see. He hasn't practiced all week. I think that is kind of the one home run hitter that you have on this offense, the type of player who really could exploit these weaknesses for the Vikings defense. I mean, Aaron Jones was banged up last week. AJ Dillon's been banged up. Keyshawn Nixon, their new kick returner, who's been
love that guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody's going to say like, oh man, Keyshawn Nixon's banged up. That's going to swing the line 2 points. Like, no, it's not, but it's a big deal for a team that struggles to move the ball at times. Like all of a sudden you're starting a drive from the Vikings 45-yard line because he reels off a 60-yard kick return. Like if he's not playing or if he's not himself, that's actually a pretty big deal for Green Bay. I don't know. I think the luck runs out this week. I really do.
Okay. I'm on the Packers even still, but those are, important factors. Like if they don't have that special teams edge, that can be such a huge factor, because so many teams just kind of eschew the return game at this point. So when you have a difference maker, it really does tend to stand out. So that Watson, I bet you wish you had Sammy Watkins still.
Yeah, he's back with the Ravens, right?
He had a 40-yard catch last week, and I was like, who is that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure enough. By the way, I just got a push notification to my phone that Jair Alexander today called Justin Jefferson's huge week 1 against the Packers, quote, a fluke. So love to see that. Poke the bear.
Good idea. Really good idea.
All right. Yeah, I'm solidly on the Vikings now. We'll see if that shifts the line at all. All right, 3 more games to get to, including your Ravens. Let's go quickly through Rams Chargers. Not a lot to see here. Rams getting a little bump after last week. I think that certainly injected some confidence. They've been a borderline watchable team the last few weeks. I wasn't a big believer in Baker. I'm still not, but it's at least been kind of fun to watch. So they at least seem a little bit reinvigorated. And I think the one thing to keep in mind with the Rams is they don't own their pick. So there's really no incentive for them to not try hard to win this game. Sean McVay wants to get as many wins as he can. I was close to putting this in the questionable, is this line a little bit too high zone? It's 6.5 in favor of the Chargers. I'm on the Rams to cover. I think the Chargers win, but I'm not quite ready to anoint the Chargers as a team that we can really trust week to week, even though they've clinched a playoff berth.
Yeah, I don't trust them either. And Eckler's a little bit dinged. I don't think that the Chargers are capable of unless Nick Foles is playing, I suppose, like playing a normal game or avoiding like the proverbial like playing down to their competition. Like that is absolutely their brand. The Rams are playing a lot better of late since Baker Mayfield came in. The Raiders game, obviously the Broncos game. So I guess by that logic, if you're an AFC West team, Baker Mayfield's looking at you in a Rams uniform, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, I mean, the Chargers, they can still play for seeding. But again, they kind of climbed their mountain and got into the playoffs last week. So I think it's, it could be a letdown spot. That's all I'm saying for the Chargers. But obviously they should win this game. They're the vastly more talented team at this point, especially with the injuries on the Rams side. But I'm on Rams 6.5. I will take the Chargers to win. Do you have any thoughts on this total sitting at 43?
I would take the over on that one. And then, I think that the Rams will be able to move the ball. I think Cam Akers has been really good of late. So I think that they're going to score into the 20s. And I have a hard time thinking that the Chargers can screw up enough to where they're not also scoring into the 20s. So I'll take the over in this one. And then just a question for the people. What would you do if you were playing on, or if you're on a team and you were sharing the building with them? Any hijinks that you would try to pull off on the other team, since that you would know the venue so well?
Yeah, I mean, so what is this like? Paint the visitors' locker room pink like Iowa. I don't know what you can really do here, right? I mean, you could set off like a stink bomb in the locker room.
Yeah, I was thinking cherry bomb in the toilet or something.
Yeah, I think you got to do it. I mean, it's gamesmanship if you're the Chargers. I don't see how you can.
Yeah, you got to mess with them. The road team in their home building, very funny.
Maybe bucket of paint over the door. Classic gag.
Yeah, I watched Home Alone over Christmas season. I got hijinks running through my head.
Oh yeah. All right. Speaking of hijinks, Steelers Ravens 2.5 is the number in favor of Baltimore. They are at home in this game. Still no official clarity on Lamar Jackson. He did not practice once again on Thursday. I think the expectation at this point is fully that he will not play. However, with this being a late kickoff on Sunday, you never know. But this line certainly implies that it will be Tyler Huntley. Are you okay with the Ravens at 2.5 here?
That line makes total sense to me. I think, the Steelers have been so up and down this year. They obviously were able to get the win late last week. The first time Kenny Pickett gets hurt, Mitchell Trubisky, I mean, they outplayed the Ravens, but it was at home. But, if Trubisky doesn't throw those 3 interceptions deep in Baltimore territory, if Calais Campbell doesn't block that field goal, we're probably talking about the Steelers looking for the season sweep in this particular spot. I do think that the Ravens have found their ground game. Finally, it looks like Dobbins is, back to being himself, and Gus Edwards was running all over everybody last week, just a yard short of the century mark. And I think it was on like just 11 carries or something. So that the theory of that backfield that we were all hoping to see coming into the year, I think we're starting to see that. So as long as Huntley can, make the occasional throw, move the chains a little bit, I think that the Ravens and their ground game are going to be able to do basically what they want against the Steelers. It's tough to sweep the Steelers, or this rivalry. It's always tough to win both of them. Although I guess in recent years, the Steelers had swept the Ravens, I think at least 2 years in a row.
That doesn't matter.
And the Ravens bad at home this year. I think last week was the first time that they've covered at home all season. This really is a weekend that's potentially set up for a lot of pain for your boy. Like if Georgia screws up on Saturday night and then the Ravens lose to the Steelers, like I'm going to be in hell. Something very similar to that happened last year when Georgia lost to Alabama, and then the next day the Ravens lost to the Steelers. I'm hoping that there's a reversal of fortunes this time around.
I think the upside to the Ravens losing is if the Chargers win, then maybe the Ravens could duck that potential wild card matchup at the bank against the Jags. I think obviously if you're the Ravens, you'd much rather play at Cincinnati, at Buffalo, or at KC.
You want to get as far away from Duval in January.
Exactly. This is a tough one with Huntley. I mean, the Steelers seem to be like, they're not eliminated. They're technically alive. They have a minuscule chance to make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen, but they are playing for the Tomlin streak. I think that means something. When this team is at full strength with TJ Watt, they're a completely different beast. So I do think we get a close game. The line obviously implies that as well. And just a criminally low total here, John, 35.
Yeah. And I like the under.
I do too. This reeks of like a 15 to 12 game. Maybe a missed extra point
not just
or
an
safety.
under, but a weird score,
Yes.
like a what happened there type of deal.
Yeah, kind of like a punter like slips the ball out of the end zone, something like that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would take the over on safeties in this game. That brings us to the game of the week, unquestionably. Bills at Bengals, potential game of the year. I mean, very rare to get this type of matchup this late in the season. Major implications as far as AFC playoff seeding goes. Bengals 1-point dogs at home. I don't like it. I'm on the Bengals here. I think they showed us quite a bit earlier this season, taking care of Kansas City at home. I think Kansas City is a better team than the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills have a lower floor. They have not really shown off that ceiling all that often over the second half of the season. And Cincinnati, John, as we know, all they do is win and all they do is cover. 7 straight wins, 7 straight covers.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're just hot at the right time right now. They're going to be at home. This is a huge game. This is pseudoscience or whatever, but like Joe Burrow does like rise to the moment. I feel like he's ready to rock in this one. Not to say that Josh Allen wilts in those same situations, but I think Burrow is going to be absolutely dialed in. I think that this Bills defense is good, but I think that the weapons that Cincinnati has now that they've started to get healthy at the right time, this sets up nicely for the Bengals. I'm a little bit surprised that they're dogs. Honestly, I could have seen them being -1 and not really blinked. So I really like the Bengals in this spot. We'll talk more of them towards the end of the show, but yeah, I not only like them to cover, but obviously I think that they win on Monday night.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do. I think this is they've kind of already had their statement win, it feels like, against Kansas City, but another huge opportunity at home for Cincinnati. So I'm with you. I just, and this, we could put it the other way too. It's a potential statement opportunity for Buffalo. That's for sure. A team that kind of, maybe not in their eyes, but in the public's eyes, I think needs one of these type of wins.
They need to re-enter the discourse. They're for a team as good as it is, and for as runaway of Super Bowl favorites as they were earlier in the season, feels like it's been awful quiet coming out of Buffalo lately.
It has. It certainly has. All right, John, let's finish up here. Get into our parlays of the week. I'll hand out the teaser of the week. We hit one again last week. We're red hot on the teasers, and then we will get into our locks. Give me your against the spread afternoon delight parlay for week 17.
Okay, so here we go. Again, afternoon window, Sunday. Give me the Packers -3. Give me the Rams +6.5, and give me. So I'm going slightly against the definition of this particular parlay because I got a money line in here, but
That's
San
fine.
Francisco just the money line. But you could do the spread and juice the odds a little bit further. But if you get those 3 right, that's +345. I'm good with that.
Good stuff there. No qualms for me. I'm going Jacksonville -4. I really think the Jags take care of business here. I'm going San Francisco -9.5. Not going money line. I'll take them up to 9.5.
Okay.
And I am taking Philly -6.5 at home against the Saints, locking in the 1 seed, clinching the NFC East. I think they go for it. That gets you to +595 over at BetMGM. Let's go to the underdog parlays.
Okay, so got a couple of money lines and a spread. Give me the Panthers money line. Give me the Browns money line, and give me the Rams +6.5. That'll get you up to +882.
Ooh, I like that one quite a bit. All right. By the way, money line dogs, we're covering at a 40.3% clip, weeks 1 through 10. It's been only 27% the last 6 weeks. So dogs got off to a hot start. They've cooled off a little bit. My parlay, we're going straight money lines here, and we are starting with the Panthers. All they got to do, win straight up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going right up against you. I'm taking the Vikings money line at Lambeau Field, and I'm taking the Steelers money line at Baltimore. Sorry about that. That gets you to plus 1,278. If you're really feeling it, if you're in sicko mode this weekend, why not throw in the Cardinals money line? They're a dog. That'll get you almost double. That'll get you to plus 3,345.
Dang, just for the Cardinals beating the Falcons, that shifts the odds that much. And we could completely see a scenario in which the Cardinals do indeed beat the Falcons. I'm on the Falcons, but far from strong on it.
Yeah, that's I think I have Bengals over Bills as my 1-pointer in Pick'em this week, but Falcons Cardinals, that's a absolute 2-pointer, no doubter. Let's get to the teaser of the week. Last week we threw out a 6.5-pointer. And we teased Tampa down to 0.5. They won. That's really the only good thing they've done all year. They saved the teaser. The Ravens won. and the 49ers won. We also gave the option to tease that Browns total and take the under. That also hit. So we're in good shape there. This week, we are going with a 7-pointer, and we're going to test things a little bit here, John. We are going to take the Kansas City Chiefs down to 5.5 against the Denver Broncos. We are going to take the Colts up to 13 points against the New York Giants. Love that one. We are going to take the Minnesota Vikings from plus 3.5 to plus 10.5. I think they keep that within 10. And, I got an either or for you. If you want to finish this off, you can keep it at just those three. But if you want to push this thing to plus 200, I will allow you to do either Steelers Ravens total, tease it up from 35 to 42, and obviously take the under there. Or if you want to involve the Jags, if you're feeling hot, take the Jags from -4 up to +3. At that point, I'm expecting a Jags win. I don't think they let that slip. Not the greatest number to tease to, obviously, but I don't think the Texans win that game. So in my mind, it's basically Jaguars win by 1 or more.
Yeah, I mean, both are such tantalizing options. I just said that I liked the under of 35, like under 35, and I was feeling good about that. But Jags as dogs, as field goal dogs against the Texans, I think the Jags would be the leg to add there.
Yeah, this was a fun week for teasers. It's usually, I'm kind of playing around, and it takes me a while to find something that I like. But as you can see, I had too many options. So yeah, I mean, if you want to make this a 5-leg teaser, by all means, go ahead and do that over at BetMGM, as long as you use our promo code BetRoto, free first bet, or risk-free first bet, I should say, up to $1,000. Do that over at BetMGM.com or on the BetMGM app. All right, John, it's time. Our penultimate locks of the regular season. Who are you going with?
Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I'm just picturing Burrow sitting there in the LSU locker room smoking the cigar. Just the vibe's too powerful. No, but for real, like I think that the Bengals are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They've proved it a bunch this year, but I think notching one more in the belt by beating the Bills on national TV like that, they're going big game hunting, folks. Give me the Bengals.
Okay, I love it. That would be 8 straight covers for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. I can tell you, I'm choosing between Philly -6.5 and Jacksonville -4.5. I'm going Jags. I'm not doing Philly 2 weeks in a row. We're going Jags. They're winning this game. They're taking care of business. They're keeping the momentum going as they head into that Week 18 showdown. Ryan Tannehill went on IR today. Things are looking up for the Jags. I think it's going to be a celebratory weekend down in Duval County. I think the Jags win big here. So I will lock up Jacksonville -4 against Houston. You are locking Bengals +1 at home against the Bills. Best of luck this week to you, John, to all the listeners, to everybody watching on YouTube. We appreciate you following us along this season. Make sure if you're betting on the NFL this weekend, you're doing it at betmgm.com or on the BetMGM app. And one more time, make sure you use our promo code BETROTO, BETROTO. First bet risk-free up to $1,000.